welcome back to episode 7 of A Witch Is. We are joined in the studio by the incredible Emily Bigger.
Hey, hey.
And our special guest for today is my lovely friend Bahaa. Welcome, Bahaa. How are you?
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
Excited?
And flattered.
You're the first male voice we've had on the podcast as well. So
I'm usually that.
you're our honorary female though.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into comedy.
Well, I'm a refugee from Syria, and I was living in Turkey as a refugee for 6 years. And I was doing this volunteer work with like an organization that was like grassroots, where we were trying to help organizations that need volunteers. So that was the point. And we needed funding. And someone who was, a comedian was like, we can do a comedy show. Someone was like, who should we put on stage? And I was like, I'll try it. And I tried it. It was fun. But what was really good is I had this joke. And it was like about this Turkish soldier that went to Syria, and he saw this cat, and she was like, needed some help. So he rescued the cat and brought it back to Turkey. And then 8,000 applications came to adopt the cat. And I was like, and now Syrians are meowing on the borders. People laughed, but some people came after the show and told me, you're on point. We have more sympathy for cats than humans, and that we should think about that. I was like, oh, this is a tool. We can use it. And so since then I've been doing that. Yeah.
You recently did a show which I went and saw. I can't even think of where it was now. It was in Brunswick. I went to the wrong place. It was a park and it was all dark.
I would do that.
I was like, I don't know what kind of event this is, but and that was amazing. Like you ended up doing like 45 minutes, I think, of stand up, and then there was like belly dancing as well afterwards, and it was just such a beautiful community feel. That's what I always get that from your events. So whenever I see you perform,
I'm planning so many events now. There's the fundraiser that I'm doing on this Saturday. That's going to be also a community event where I'm going to be cooking food and selling it.
Food.
And we have comedy, we have DJs. We'll talk about that, I hope.
Yeah. And you quite often do things for the ASRC, the Asylum Seeker Refugee Centre.
Yeah, I'm a hero. I'm there.
You're a savior.
I'm a refugee hero. Yeah, that's my. It's called the Telethon Hero.
Yes, that was the other day too.
Yeah, I've been doing that, so that was really, really good. It's really nice to see how many people are rallying around this cause, because when you're not dealing with that, you're seeing everything else, which is the media and all the hate and all of the and also like the blissful ignorance that people have, which is very good. Like I envy them when they don't have to think about what's going on. But when you see the amount of people that rally, 1.3 million in one day, that's how many, and so many faces in that telethon. That was a very soul nourishing experience, honestly.
Yeah. Using your comedy for good.
Yeah.
And that's something we often talk about is like, as comedians, you don't usually get paid. But then if you do get paid, how do you feel good about, like, you either go towards the capitalist approach where it's like, it's all for me, or you move towards that more philanthropical way of performing where it's, I want to use my voice for good. I want to, put it to good use. So
I'm hoping I can do both at some point, because I need it to sustain itself.
Yeah. You need to get paid, but it's also like,
Giving back really feels good.
It does. Yeah.
And it brings like community together and finding.
So we'll dive into the episode. Episode 7 is A Witch Is Using a Cauldron. And what we're going to be talking about today is the association of witches using a cauldron. Cauldrons are quite often associated with witchcraft, but it's usually a common cooking instrument to create masses of food. And then we're going to look into food being used as a weapon and how it's become instrumental in wars and genocide, as well as the impact on industrialization of farming and how that's created a really toxic kind of experience for a lot of underprivileged people in the world. I'm just going to go through a bit of history, and I just want you to tell me where you think these cauldrons are from. There are 2 photos.
Ooh.
Scotland?
Interesting. The first one with all these scriptures, I want to call them, I don't know, like, or drawing. I want to say it's either South American or Egyptian.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm over here like got wrong.
Okay, I'll put you out of your misery. So the one with just the single base, so that's actually Scythian, and that's 4th century BC.
Whoa.
So Greco-Roman period. And then the one that's got the 3 legs, that's actually Chinese, ancient China from 1200 BCE. Now, so cauldrons were always just large metal vessels for heating, boiling or cooking. Their main use was for making broths and stews, but they also were then later used to produce herbal remedies and things like that, as well as teas. So they were very common in Celtic society, and in Celtic society we saw something called the Horn of Plenty. And it was this myth that this cauldron provided an inexhaustible supply of food, but it was also the symbol of limitless knowledge. In Chinese culture, there is something called ding vases, and these are ritual vases or cauldrons like we see with the 3 legs. And they were not only used for offerings to gods, but they're actually used to kind of boil people and those on trial and whatnot as a method of torture. Generally speaking, according to the I Ching, the cauldron is a symbol of good fortune and prosperity. And so once again, it replicates that idea of this cauldron of plenty feeding all the people.
There's so many stories about this in our culture, like where, at war or at like gatherings, and like the food is the center of the story, although it's not actually the story.
Yeah.
It's like whatever else is going on. Cooking a huge amount of food it brings joy.
Yeah, and those 3-legged cauldrons actually have a big historical significance in Chinese culture. The first one was cast by someone called Shang Ti, and from it he gained the powers of divination, of controlling the cycle of seasons, and finally he gained immortality.
But he's dead now.
But he's he's dead. Something that I thought was really interesting, actually, is the word cauldron. Now, I don't know if you've heard of Kazan.
Yes.
Yes.
That's an Arabic word.
An Arabic word, and it means cauldron.
Ooh.
It means container. Yeah, basically. Yeah.
So it comes from the word the Volga Tatars. They were essentially Turks that went into Russia and Siberia and stuff like that. So that's where that word came from.
Fun fact about that word, because I'm from Aleppo, which is like the north of Syria, which is very close to the borders of Turkey. So the Arabic word is khazan. Khazan.
Yep.
And then, but in Aleppo, we call those containers of water azan. Azan, which is like very unique. Like why don't we say what everyone else says it?
Yeah.
And then when I was a refugee in Turkey, I heard the Turkish word, which is kazan.
Yeah.
What happened is khazan, the Arabic word, went to Turkey, became kazan, then went back to Arabic in Syria, in Aleppo, and became azan. So now we have a word that just came out of just going backwards and forwards.
Yeah. Wow. Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. So there's a few towns still in Russia, for instance, that have this name Kazan, and it refers to the original cauldrons of the time. We also saw that it was very popular in Greek legend, but it was more associated with immortality, magical rites and things like that. So it's just interesting that we went from this being a thing that would provide large amounts of food to people to being a magical thing. And there's not really an answer as to when it became a bad thing, other than it became more associated with magic and being a negative thing associated with witches in the late 16th century. And that's important because that's around the time that we're doing a lot of European colonization. It's the same time as the transatlantic slave trade and the colonization of the Americas, the colonizations of parts of Asia, like the Philippines, parts of India, all of that by Europe. And we know in those cultures, masses of food are made and they're shared with people. And so you kind of wonder if there's a bit of similarity or there's a bit of symbolism there that, white people at this time are seeing other cultures using these giant dishes to feed people. And they're like, ooh, that could be something bad. Of course, there's not a direct link there, but no one really knows when cauldrons or why cauldrons became associated with being a negative thing with witches, because every household at some point in medieval Europe had them. So it was very frustrating because I'm like, why? Why are they bad?
Where did it turn evil though? Is it
it's around the
Europe
16th century. Yeah.
And place-wise, is it just
in Europe?
Europe only?
But it wasn't named in any of the specific texts as being a bad thing. There's this association that started, and no one can really pinpoint why it started, but you just have to look at what's happening in the world at the same time and go, maybe there could be a link there, maybe not. Commonly, they had in Korea, there was something called a gamasot, which is essentially a cauldron as well. And they've been used in society for a very, very, very long time. Something that we can trace back to it being a negative thing is our good old friend Macbeth. So one of the opening scenes in Macbeth is the three witches standing around the cauldron and they're saying, boil, boil, toil and trouble. In our show, for the listeners who didn't come to our show, which is horrible, you were terrible people and we don't like you.
You missed out.
You missed out.
You missed out on the best night of your life.
Exactly. You'll never get it back. We actually, at the very start of our show, we stood around a cauldron and we threw things into it. And so we had like the testicle of Trump.
Oh, I love that one.
Taint of taint, musk of Elon, and a dash of fragile masculinity. And that was a direct thing from Macbeth. We were trying to make fun of Macbeth. Now, the other thing that happened is you have the Renaissance, which sees a massive rise in paintings and appreciation of ancient texts, stories and religions. And there were many paintings that came out of witches during this time or in Anglo society. And one of the most famous ones is Circe from the Odyssey. And she's boiling things over a cauldron to get sailors to come to the island. And so it's hard to say where it became evil, but it doesn't matter now because it had that evil iconography being associated with witchcraft, whether people were using it to make food or to make herbal remedies. It became a negative thing. The other thing to note is that it wasn't rich men that was stewing over a cauldron. You know, it was never someone in high society. It was always low society. So once again, comes down to poverty and things like that.
The other thought that came to mind is like all the children across like the world making their like potions in the bath with mum's shampoo and conditioner. And I'm just like trying to imagine, you know, the old white dude from back in the day coming as a ghost being like, oh my God, there's witches everywhere, even in children.
Yeah. How dare they do this? Okay. I have just sent you a photo. Tell me what you think that is, Meryl.
Ooh. It looks voodoo to me.
Mm.
There's
like
a skull
death.
in there and all of that, yeah. And the eyes are green.
Yeah, there's like little marbles in the eyes, I think.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, it's what makes it really extra creepy. It feels
Oh, and there's bones as well. Like not all of them are sticks.
Yeah, there's some bones in there. There's a skull. I think there's a feather in there.
Interesting. This sounds like voodoo. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it looks voodoo to me.
You're not entirely wrong. I love that.
I love this
You're
game.
not entirely wrong.
I love this game.
We get 1 point, right?
So this is actually from religion in Central America called Palo Mayombe. It's a belief system that was a mixture of West African gods and Cuban rituals. So this comes directly from the transatlantic slave trade. So I'm not sure if you're aware, but during the 16th till about the 19th century, the Portuguese and the Spanish made an agreement to split the world into two. And they were like, we're going to colonize this part of the world. You're going to colonize that part of the world. And so Spain took parts of Central America and then they took mass amounts of slaves from Africa to cultivate the land, to do the lower jobs in society. And with that came a lot of these religions, you know. And so you have this religion called Palo Mayombe where they use cauldrons and it's still in practice today.
The origin of the religion is from Africa? And
It's a fusion. So it's a fusion of African and Cuban rituals. So it's this.
That's so nice. You don't hear of religions fusing.
Yeah. It's
Usually
similar to
they
voodoo.
fight.
Voodoo is a fusion of religions. It's not.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that's what this is.
I'm learning so much. Thank you.
Yeah. And this actually does have similarities to voodoo. There's also this other sect called Santeria, which is the Way of the Saints, which is once again derived from African slave trade in colonial Cuba. It combines Spanish Catholicism and West African Yoruba religion. But essentially they still use this cauldron and they will put sticks in it. They will put herbs in it and different ingredients representing the elements of the world, such as herbs, stones, soils, insects, carcasses, and human remains. And this cauldron in particular is actually called a Nganga. And it's still being practiced today. So they still use these cauldrons in their religion. So I thought that was interesting.
That is interesting. I just sort of, like the merge of all the different religions together to create, again, it's like evolving human nature.
Okay. I sent through a couple of other photos if you want to have a look at them.
Oh, yeah. The first one with all the fire and the naked beautiful people.
That guy's got red hair. I love it.
Yeah. And you can see either way. Like you can see it as a bad, evil thing, or you can see it they're just cooking.
They're just cooking, yeah.
Yeah.
And if you probably can't see it, but if you look at that photo, what they've got in the pot is like fish, corn, there's some beans in there. Any idea what part of the world this was?
I mean, they're redheads, so that really narrows it down.
Scottish. Definitely Scottish.
Yeah, Scotland. Well, they're naked, and I think, that still practices today. We still cook naked in the kitchen.
No, I always cook naked.
Yeah.
Really?
No. A, I don't cook.
I'm so confused because,
B, I wouldn't do it naked.
I tried. Splash is so bad. Like, you burn. No, don't cook naked.
It's not happening.
Well, I'm noticing the feather in the gentleman's hair. So I don't know if it's Scotland.
Ooh, that's fair.
This was painted by a white person. I'll put it that way. But
so they whitened the people in it.
Yeah.
That makes sense now.
Yeah.
Is it Asia? Because the fish.
No. So this is in Roanoke in America. So this was the first colony when the Puritans went to America.
This is how they looked like?
Well, that's what they interpreted. They had bowl cuts, apparently. So this painting is called "The Beauty of the Earthenware Vessels in Which They Cook Food."
Wow.
So it's a Native American woman tending to a pot of stew while a man fans the fire underneath. It was from 1590 based on an earlier painting that was done in 1585 when they colonized Roanoke. Yeah, this was on the Outer Bank region of present-day North Carolina, and he depicted aspects of their lives in his watercolor paintings. And once again, we see this cauldron. We see this massive amount of food that's being cooked. And as we know, they thought that anyone who was Indigenous was backwards and was practicing some sort of witchcraft or paganism. So once again, just pointing out that these things were happening at the same time as cauldrons was seen as evil.
I don't know why I think the other man is evil, the next one, but he's a man, so that's why.
He looks like a wizard.
He does look like a wizard, doesn't he?
Yeah, but like a good one or a bad one? He has a look in his eye.
He doesn't have any bones or anything around him, or
He looks like he's just cooking a feast of some sort. So this is one of the oldest stories we have about cauldrons. It's called Dagda's Cauldron. He was considered a great god of Irish mythology and portrayed as a father figure, king and druid. Now, not a witch, but a druid, even though druids very similar practices to witches, all of that. He is actually associated with fertility, agriculture, masculinity and strength, as well as magic, druidry and wisdom. He can control life and death, the weather and crops, as well as time and the seasons.
So is he like a myth, or is he actually...
he's a mythological character who has a cauldron that never runs empty. So he's always got food in it for people.
Feels toxically masculine. It needs to, why does he have to control all of these things? I
don't know. And he also has a magic staff of dual nature, which kills on one end and brings to life with the other. And we were just talking about this in the other podcast, the fact that men, when they're doing wizardry or magic, they're seen as wise men, druids, or
Speaking of the pot that never runs out, did you know that that's a thing, that there are places out there that have one pot and they've been cooking in it for hundreds of years, and it's the same.
That's crazy.
They never run out of it.
What would it be? Do you have...
And some people have been questioning, isn't that bad? The bacteria and stuff in it, but apparently not, because it's at a certain temperature.
Yeah.
And it's a brown color because it's been cooking for years.
Yeah, I'm just reading
all the flavors and stuff.
Perpetual stew.
Yeah, that's it.
There you go.
I've learned that in white culture that you have these what you call it, seasoning the
pan.
The pan.
I still do that.
If you don't understand the situation, you'll think, what is going... Wash your pan, is what I would say.
I have bacon fat in the pan one day, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to keep going with that one. And I put some butter in it and then put it into my cookie dough mixture.
You're just adding to it, yeah.
It worked.
Yeah. How is that different from perpetual...
Perpetual stew? Look, there's a few...
actually, perpetual stew makes more sense because at least it's constantly under heat, so you're fine.
Whereas we're just collecting bacteria and growth. And
you keep reheating it so it kills them again, but
I never heard about this before, but there's one in Tokyo that's been replenished since 1945.
Wow.
There's two in France, a French beef stew to have lasted for 21 years, and porte-au-feu in Normandy, which is also in France, which is reported for 300 years to be constantly cooking.
That's interesting. I would try the Tokyo one. I wouldn't try the French one.
There's also one in Bangkok
stew
that's been there for 40 years, but I would want to try the 300-year-old one. I think if you're going to go with old food,
Yeah, but like French, what do they eat?
Snails?
Yeah,
Frogs?
yeah, that's what I mean.
I don't know.
Yeah, that looks great.
Looks delicious.
Yeah, I'm terrified. I don't think I'd be game enough to try that.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah.
No. The next photo.
This is a
More
comfortable.
modern.
We know this scene. Is there a cauldron though? There's no.
No, there's no cauldron.
Yeah, but if you put one,
If I put one in there, it'd make more sense.
it would
but
make sense.
Sorry. There's
Those
no.
are all evil people. Yeah, this is the
Parliament
UN, isn't it?
House.
This is the UN. Yeah. Yep.
Garbage.
So this is the UN Security Council Resolution 2417. Resolution 2417 recognises the link between conflict and hunger and condemns starvation as a weapon of war. It makes it clear that food security is a basic human right and that governments will be held responsible for their actions when they contravene these rights. Using food as a weapon can actually be traced back a very long time. So it's actually traced back to The Art of War by Sun Tzu, which was written in the 5th century BCE in China. Now, how that has played out over the years. So we know that British colonialism killed about 100 million Indians over 40 years because they took all their jobs, essentially forced majority of the population to work in agriculture, which then, of course, fucked up all the crops and everything like that and caused massive starvation. So 100 million people died under the British rule just from starvation alone in India, which is more than all the famines in Soviet Union, Maoist China and North Korea combined. In northern Vietnam, for instance, we saw widespread starvation in 1944 to 1945. But then on top of that, the lovely Americans came in and dropped Agent Orange during the Vietnam War, which decimated crops. But then on top of that also had a massive amount of devastation on individuals as well. And we still see victims of Agent Orange today, which was a pesticide that was used in the Vietnam War by the Americans. And then in 1967 to 1970, there was something called the Biafran famine. This happened in Nigeria. The United Kingdom gave Nigeria sovereignty in 1960, and then they declared their independence. But then food was cut off to 13 million people. In 1967, it started, and for 3 years, they were deliberately starved to death. At the height of the war, an estimated 10,000 people, including 6,000 children, died every day from starvation. And this has become really somber really quickly, and I do apologize, but I think the reason that I wanted to bring this up is obviously we can see what's happening in the world today. And Bahaa, you're very instrumental in trying to bring awareness to this as well. So in Gaza in particular at the moment, daily food intake has fallen well below the survival level. And there have been complete blockades and stoppages of food getting into Gaza at all. On top of that, people are getting killed when they do try and get food and aid.
It's very disheartening because in every conflict, the first thing that evil people do is to stop food. And each side justifies it in the way they want to justify it. Like I was in Syria and I was also under a siege at some point where, we didn't have food for, I think it was something around 45 days where there was no access to food in my area. And at some point, I remember just running behind a watermelon truck because there was a watermelon. That was my dinner. I want you to imagine sitting in your home. There's bombs, there's bullets, there's everything, and you don't have food. And then a truck comes by with watermelon. And you're like, I'm desperate enough. I'll just have that as food. And the reality of that is that the soldiers don't suffer from these things. No. So, they're trying to try to justify by saying like we're pressuring the soldiers by cutting the food. I don't know what's going on with Hamas, but I think they have access to food.
Yeah.
Whatever food comes, it will go first to soldiers. Like that's where the food comes. So you're just starving civilians. There's no justification for that. There's no reason for that. And you're not going to win a war by that. But in Palestine, it's a completely different thing. There's a genocide.
It's a genocide. Yeah. There's no other word for it. And one of the first steps, of genocide is to dehumanize people. And food is the most basic level of human right in my mind. So to cut that off at the get-go blows my mind that people just don't understand that this is a genocide.
So what do you do from here to help in that situation?
Well, there's so much you can do, but the reality is that the governments need to actually step in because it's just like with global warming and climate change and all of these things we try to make it like a human basic person responsibility, but the reality is you can do so much, but it takes much smaller amount of effort if a government just steps in. And that's what we need. We need opening of the borders. We need opening of all these trades that need to happen. And also there's the problem that we have right now is that there is access to, maybe there will be like small amounts of food, but that would be very, very expensive, and no one has that money.
No.
So you're basically like, if you're already disadvantaged, which what war causes is like, it really entrenches those societal, I don't know, divides. So you'll feel it more. At least that was my experience in Syria. What we can do right now is help those who made it. So that's what I'm trying to do right now with the fundraiser. There's a wave of Gazan refugees. I heard that they're coming to Australia. So we want to raise funds for PARA, which is Palestine Australia Relief and Action, and they're helping newly arrived Gazan refugees. So that's the fundraiser that we're doing. Like there's also a lot of fundraisers that are sending money to Egypt, to Jordan, to West Bank, which also is, by the way, being starved and being attacked and so it's not just Gaza. It's both sides. And
it's disgusting. And I mean, it is happening in a lot of regions across the world. Ethiopia and Yemen, they are two countries that consistently see starvation used in war. Yeah. And historically, we have seen that with colonization as well. They will quite often cut off the food sources. There's a really haunting photo, which whenever I see it, it sends shivers down my spine. But when the British went into America, there was a lot of the indigenous tribes would use bison for food and also for warmth, right? But as you probably are aware, indigenous cultures, they very much focus on the life cycle of a creature. So they're not going to kill them if they're mating age so they're going to be very respectful. What the white Americans did was they went and slaughtered, there's something like 90% of the bison population. And there's these photos of these men standing in front of mountains of skulls of bison. And that was solely done because that was the food source for them.
Just to harm them.
Yeah.
Out of evil, pure evil.
It wasn't done because they were like, we can use all this meat, we can use all this. It was done as how do we get rid of indigenous population? We cut off their food source.
Yeah.
It's sad too, like, because like when you're pushed into drastic situations, into like desperate situations, what happens is you'll find yourself doing the things that go against your, like your beliefs too. Like, so I'm sure there was also a time where they forced indigenous people to kill their own bisons too, like that, and which would hurt a lot more too, because like I've seen Syrians, for instance, cut off a tree that they have been nurturing for 50, 100 years and trying to make sure that like it's a beautiful tree, and then they cut it off because they needed heat. And that itself is like one of the worst faces of war. It's to go against something that you truly believe in just because you really have been pushed.
Yeah, because you need to survive. Yeah. I don't want to end this on too much. So we're just going to talk about two incredible women that are doing some great work in this area. The first one is Dr. Vandana Shiva. She is a professor. She got her degree, I believe, in the University of Ontario. In 1991, she created this thing called Navadanya, meaning 9 seeds or new gift in Hindi. It's a project, and it's to combat the growing tendency towards monoculture promoted by large corporations, because as we know, India has a lot of agricultural land and they were heavily impacted by GMOs. She does a lot of work around climate change and conserving unique strains of seed crops, because she talks about the fact that, climate change is just making the poorest people more hungry. That's just what happens in these times. So she's done some really incredible work. And if you have a chance to listen to some of her talks, I really recommend it. I spent a few hours yesterday watching some of her stuff. The second is a professor called Professor Ruth Kasaya Onyango. She's a Kenyan professor of nutrition, and she was actually in the Kenyan parliament. She created a program called Rural Outreach Africa to empower smallholder farmers to reduce malnutrition. And so she oversaw the country's nutrition policy. She co-wrote for the United Nations Systems Standing Committee on Nutrition and famously said, poor female nutrition early in life reduces learning potential, increases reproductive and maternal health risks, and lowers productivity. This situation contributes to women's diminished ability to gain access to other assets later in life and undermines attempts to eliminate gender inequalities. So she's working really hard towards empowering female farmers, also teaching people how to grow food in their backyard to sustain themselves and things like that. So it's not all negative news, but I think it's getting access to food is a basic human right, and yet we still don't have that in some of the most progressive parts of the world. So
when my mom left Syria, she left me in the freezer daily meals. I
thought you meant she left you in the freezer.
Yeah, so I was like, oh.
She left me in the freezer.
That's Australian houses. No, she left me like daily meals. So I would defrost a meal a day. Then she cooked. She thought she was going for 60 days. So she cooked 60 meals, and I would just open the freezer and I would take one meal, defrost it, and then eat it. And yeah, I mean, she wasn't there next to me, but her food was a tool for me to be connected to her. And yeah, I have my many problems with her, but that was the only way I felt her. And it was what we talk about, like how dealing with emotions and dealing with trauma and all of that. I've had many issues with my mother, but food right now, when I cook it, I cook her recipes. It just reminds me that she's a human, and that was one tool she used. I found it, and I'm so happy now. Every time I cook a meal, I remember that this is a meal that my mom used to cook for me, and she used to, enjoy doing that. And that was her way of saying, I love you. Or at least I'm putting that meaning. I hope she did.
That's your way of feeling connected and feeling loved. And, I think food really does play emotionally. It does. I have a friend, and whenever we go out together, we make it really important that we go somewhere where we've never been before, or maybe a cultured place to eat. And we always share food. Like, we don't order like separate meals or something. We get a bunch of things, and we just... that between me and my beautiful friend, we connect, and it's really like strong, and we're like, oh, this food is delicious. We're so grateful for it. And it's a bonding thing. And then if you meet someone who's like, I am white, but my partner is also white, and he doesn't have that connection to food. So I struggle with that, because like I need that with somebody. It's so important. And so, yeah, when I see that food is not that important to him, I'm just like, oh.
Yeah.
He just didn't do it the right way.
Yeah. Like, wake up.
When we have Harmony Day at work, and I work in a company that is great at employing people from all diverse backgrounds, which is great. But as the white person in the office on Harmony Day, when everyone's meant to bring a food of plate that represents their culture, I'm like, I brought fairy bread last year. And I remember this beautiful girl I work with who's, I feel like she might be Syrian too, actually. Oh. Yeah, she tried fairy bread for the first time. She's like, kids at school would always get this, and I'd never get this because she grew up in Australia. She's like, Mum always gave me, these meals, and kids would judge me. So she was so excited to try fairy bread. The utter disappointment on her face when she had it. She was like, are you for real?
Yeah, it's really sad.
I'm like, it's sprinkled on bread, okay?
Yeah.
The best.
That's what I realized about Australian cultural food. Like, I'm gonna be very annoying right now, but like Vegemite, if you didn't have it while you're a child, you'll not connect with it.
No.
The fairy bread, you would not taste it after. So like you guys indoctrinate children into like liking this kind of food.
Very bad food.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's a tool for propaganda, is what it is in this story. You've been brainwashed to like things like Vegemite and fairy bread.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm joking.
Vegemite. No.
I follow this girl on TikTok. She's Australian, I think, and her partner is Samoan, and she's doing all these cooking, recipes that he grew up with, and she'd never made before, but she loves him and she wants to give him something in food. And I actually really get a kick out of watching these like TikTok videos because of how happy she is and how excited he is when he tries it. And he's like, yeah, that just took me back to my childhood. And it's just, I don't know, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So sweet. Food is so, like, it can be such a connector, it connects people and
it's such an easy tool for, like, it's easy to use for good and for bad. That's what's said.
Yeah.
That's what's,
So, Bahaa, you have got an incredible fundraiser on this Saturday for your birthday.
Yes, July 5th. Yes. At 5:30, sorry. 5:30, yeah.
So we'll put a link to get tickets and make sure we make a little video for that. What else do you have coming up? You've got a few things.
Oh, Fringe Festival.
Fringe?
Yay!
Yeah, I have a show.
Awesome.
It's called My Refugee Disorder.
Ooh.
Love it.
And the tagline is, when you cannot afford order. Because, it's a disorder, but,
I love that.
Love it. Okay.
Yeah, it's a show about like the experience of being a refugee and how, the journey shapes your way of thinking and how it's also, hopefully it will be insightful and funny. That's the point of it. Yeah.
And where is it?
75 Reed Street in, I want to say Fitzroy.
And you've also got a podcast called My Refugee Thoughts? No,
Refugee Thoughts.
Refugee, not your refugee thoughts.
No, every refugee. Yeah, I do have that.
Yeah.
That's where I interview refugees and talk about the refugee experience, but we talk about like things that the refugee experience is not being talked about in depth. So it will be topics that no other people would talk about, like uniquely refugee thoughts.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Amazing.
Perfect. And otherwise, thank you so much for coming along, Bahaa.
Thank you for having me. This was so fun. And nice.
Yeah, you can catch us on Instagram at a.which.is podcast. You can catch Emily Bigger at Emmy Bigger. And I am Jayne Steer at It's Jayne Steer. And you can find Bahaa at Haha with Bahaa.
Yes, Haha with Bahaa.
Haha with Bahaa. And we'll catch you guys next time.